Lila woke with a gasp. Her heart pounded. Sweat soaked her sheets. She sat up, her breath coming in short, panicked bursts. The room was dark, but the terror from her dream lingered, making the shadows seem alive. The nightmare clung to her like cobwebs, sticky and persistent. She could still feel the cold, glassy surfaces of the mirrors pressing in on her. She had been trapped in a maze of mirrors, each turn leading to more confusion and fear. The reflections were endless, each one more distorted than the last. Each reflection twisted her face into a grotesque smile, a mockery of her own expression. It was as if the mirrors were laughing at her, enjoying her fear. Harlequin's painted grin haunted her reflection, a sinister presence that seemed to follow her every move. The grin was wide and menacing, stretching impossibly across the face. His eyes glowed with an evil light, piercing through the darkness of the maze. They seemed to see right through her, exposing her deepest fears.
What was that?
Lila shuddered, the memory of the dream sending chills down her spine. She felt a cold sweat on her forehead and her hands trembled. She rubbed her eyes, trying to erase the image of the Harlequin's grin and the glowing eyes. But the more she tried to forget, the clearer the images became. It was just a dream, a horrible, vivid dream. She repeated this to herself, hoping to calm her racing heart. But the fear felt too real, too immediate, but just a dream. Right? She questioned herself, doubt creeping in. What if it wasn't just a dream? What if the maze and the Harlequin were real? She glanced at her reflection in the window, seeking reassurance. The familiar sight of her own face should have been comforting. For a fleeting moment, she saw the painted smile flash across her own face. It was quick, but unmistakable. The same sinister grin from her nightmare. Lila gasped and jumped back, her heart pounding even harder. She blinked, and the reflection was gone. But the fear remained, gnawing at her. It was gone, but the question lingered. Was it ever really there, or was her mind playing tricks on her, blurring the lines between dream and reality? At school, Jake wasn't himself. He, who usually couldn't stop talking, barely spoke. His eyes were distant, glazed over.
Jake, you all right?
Lila asked, concerned. He blinked slowly as if startled.
What? Oh yeah, fine.
His voice was flat, lifeless. It sent a shiver down Lila's spine. This wasn't the Jake she knew, this wasn't her friend. Something was very wrong. Lila couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that had been gnawing at her for days. It was as if a dark cloud had settled over her thoughts, casting shadows on everything she did. Jake's behavior had been odd lately, almost as if he was hiding something. Her recurring nightmare, where she saw children disappearing into the night, only added to her anxiety. It all felt connected, like pieces of a puzzle she couldn't quite put together. Determined to uncover the truth, she knew she had to dig deeper. She had to find out what was going on, no matter how frightening the answers might be. She remembered the news reports from the past few years, stories that had once seemed like distant tragedies but now felt eerily close. Each report was a piece of the larger mystery. Towns the fair visited often had strange occurrences. Missing children, unexplained events. The fairground, once a place of joy and laughter, now seemed shrouded in a sinister aura. Lila searched online, her heart pounding with each click. Each search result brought her closer to the chilling truth. She could feel the weight of the mystery pressing down on her. The stories were always the same. A traveling fair, missing children. The pattern was too clear to ignore, and the more she read, the more she felt the pieces falling into place. And whispers of a creepy clown, Harlequin. The name sent shivers down her spine. Who was this figure, and what role did he play in the disappearances? It all pointed back to the fair, to Harlequin. The fairground, once a place of joy, now seemed like a labyrinth of secrets and shadows.
This can't be a coincidence. Lila's voice trembled as she spoke, the realization dawning on her.
Lila whispered to herself, her face illuminated by the screen, which cast an eerie glow in the dark room. She felt a chill run down her spine as she stared at the screen. The screen showed a news article about missing children, the headline glaring back at her. Each word seemed to pulse with a life of its own, echoing the fears that had been building inside her. The mystery was deeper and darker than she had ever imagined. Lila rushed to Jake's house. A cold dread filled her. She knew something was terribly wrong.
Jake!
She found him in his room, staring at his reflection in the mirror. His reflection stared back. But it wasn't Jake, it was Harlequin. The painted smile stretched across Jake's face. His eyes gleamed with an unnatural light.
Fight it!
Jake didn't seem to hear her. He was trapped, his reflection taking over. Lila knew she had to act fast. Mirrors! The nightmare flashed back. Mirrors were the key. The fairgrounds were deserted. Carnival rides stood silent and still. The air hung heavy with a strange energy. Lila walked cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. She clutched a backpack filled with small mirrors, her only weapon against the unknown.
Harlequin, I know you're here.
A high-pitched giggle echoed around her. Then, Harlequin appeared. He stepped out from behind a distorted mirror in the funhouse. The painted smile seemed wider, crueler in the darkness.
You shouldn't have come here, little one. Now you will join the others.
Lila held up the mirrors, surrounding Harlequin with his own reflection. His grin wavered, the evil light in his eyes flickering.
You can't hide from yourself.
Harlequin writhed, his form flickering between the clown and a terrified Jake. He clutched his head, screaming. Using all her strength, Lila smashed the mirrors. A blinding light erupted, throwing them both back. When the light faded, Jake lay on the ground, groaning. Harlequin was gone, for now. Lila rushed to Jake's side. Her heart pounded in her chest as she saw him lying there, weak and pale. She had feared the worst, but now, seeing him awake and aware, a wave of relief washed over her. He was weak, pale, but he was himself again. The color was slowly returning to his cheeks, and his eyes, though tired, held a spark of recognition. The painted smile was gone. The sinister mask that had haunted their every step had finally vanished, leaving behind the real Jake.
Lila, what happened? Jake's voice was weak, but the confusion in his eyes was clear. He struggled to piece together the fragments of his memory.
It's okay. It's over now. Lila's voice was soothing, but she couldn't hide the tremor in her words. She wanted to believe it was truly over, but a nagging doubt lingered in her mind.
They walked away from the fairgrounds, the first rays of dawn painting the sky. The vibrant colors of the sunrise seemed to promise a new beginning, a fresh start after the nightmare they had endured. But Lila couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The fairground, once a place of joy and laughter, now felt tainted, its shadows hiding secrets she couldn't forget. She glanced back at the deserted fair. The ride stood still, the stalls empty, yet the air seemed thick with the remnants of their ordeal. Even in the growing light it seemed to loom, filled with shadows. The fairground, bathed in the soft glow of dawn, still held an eerie presence, as if the darkness had left a permanent mark. She knew, deep down, that this wasn't over. The curse that had plagued them was not fully broken. There were still pieces of the puzzle left unsolved, and she couldn't rest until they were. Harlequin was gone, but the curse wasn't broken. Not entirely. The sinister figure that had tormented them might have disappeared, but its influence lingered, casting a long shadow over their future. The painted smile still lingered in her nightmares, a chilling reminder of the horror that lay hidden beneath the surface. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it, a haunting echo of the terror they had faced. Lila knew that their journey was far from over, and the lingering curse would continue to test their strength and resolve.